This is the ABQ Business Podcast with your host, Jason Rigby. Each week we'll interview visionary business leaders to inspire the creative power and spirit that's in every entrepreneur. Discussing strengths, weaknesses, strategies, systems, and the problems we can all solve together for a new future for local small business.
What a time of this. I was just talking with Sandia. She's this is your third episode, isn't it, Sandia? Yeah, this is your third episode, and we were talking about like what a crazy year this is. 2020 has been. There's so many memes out on the internet, funny ones about how crazy this has been. But I wanted to bring you back on because I feel like it's so important for business owners. We talked about the loans, and we went through what's going on with COVID. Now we're getting and what you're stressing to everyone as an expert is this tax planning. What topic did you want to bring today for everyone that you feel right now is the most important?
Jason, thank you for inviting me back again. I'm sure people are absorbing this and understanding what tax planning is. So today I just realized that there is a time-sensitive topic that everybody should be aware of because we're almost towards the end of the year, believe it or not. So there has to be, if there is any tax planning, it has to be done now. Like I had said, there's no end-of-year tax planning. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today is something called qualified disaster relief payments. This is a tax code that I would really like to talk to our listeners and make them understand what benefit it can bring to their business. And the reason it is important is because it's only applicable for a limited time, most probably only for this year, because next year comes and we're no longer in the disaster zone. Then this section of qualified disaster relief payments is not going to be applicable next year, unlike other tax strategies where we can keep implementing those strategies every year going forward. So that's why it's important that our listeners, pay close attention to it and act upon it, because they can really bank on this transaction, and their cash flow is going to boost by several $1,000s if they can implement it correctly.
So, like specifically, when you get into, because there's all these government names for things and programs, and it's just when you look at the tax books, they're just so confusing. When you're talking tax planning, and then you're talking about this disaster relief payments, or this quality disaster relief program, specifically, what is it, and how can it help a business?
Definitely. So I'm just gonna read a quick quote on what tax planning is all about, because a lot of people don't know what tax planning is. That has been our major challenge. It is simply a way of reducing your tax liability while you are adding into your profits. So if your bottom line is increasing, there is absolutely no rule that you have to pay more in taxes. There's a nice quote by Arthur Godfrey. He says, "I'm proud to be paying taxes in the United States. The only thing is I could be just as proud for half the money," right? So that's what tax planning is. I mean, some people like to pay taxes, and we all do. We should all pay our fair share. But if we can reduce our tax liability, what can it do to our family, our family's future, our children, our retirement? Just think through it. It's cash straight in your pocket. So that's what tax planning is. Now, I know that there's quite a few things that we need to talk about here. So I'm just going to recap quickly what we talked about on the CARES Act, what benefit it gave to our business owners during the time of pandemic. It has been a time of opportunities for a lot of us. I know on a personal end, people are getting sick, but for a lot of businesses, there are quite a few opportunities that everybody should avail. So some of the things that the Congress has approved are $1,200 of stimulus checks, family and sick leave, enhanced state unemployment, one-time IRA and 401k, no 10% penalty withdrawal of up to 100k. I believe we talked about all of these in our past meeting, but I definitely want to go over these. Meeting and rent assistance or deferments, net operating losses that can be applied to multiple years, and they are now brought back. Initially with the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, this was taken away. You could only carry forward your losses. Now, because of the pandemic, you can amend your taxes and go back 3 years, whichever year that you pick to amend. Deferment of payroll taxes for all of 2020. So if anybody who is on payroll, including yourself and your employees, you can defer the payment of payroll taxes 50% at the end of 2020, 25% at the end of April 2021, and the other 25% has to be paid by December of 2021. So that's a huge, huge benefit because payroll taxes is a huge liability for a lot of business owners. Another benefit is charitable deductions. Now, anybody who is huge on charity, they can now deduct charitable deductions on their taxes without itemizing it. Initially, it was only if you would itemize, you can deduct the charity contributions. But now, even if you're a standard deduction kind of person, you can still deduct charitable contributions. Another thing there have been multiple tax credits that came along with CARES Act. Lastly, there were SBA lending options that we discussed about PPP and EIDL. So these are all the things that we discussed in our last communication. Now, what I have brought today is something called Disaster Relief Act, and a little bit of history about this. It started as a terrorism act when the 9/11 was hit, and it evolved into Disaster Relief Act. And what exactly it is on March 13, the president declared a national emergency. And so when this national emergency was declared, disaster relief section 139 kicked in, and basically it says that if it is a disaster zone, which all of the 50 states are at this time, then there are specific kind of payments that are personal expenses that can be deducted out of your business. So you can run those personal expenses through your business because we are in the disaster zone. So that's a Disaster Relief Act. And what we really need to pay attention to, so for business owners or employers, the expenses has to be reasonable. So anybody who is stuck at home, their children have come back from college and their expenses have gone up in terms of feeding your child, maybe having to purchase Netflix subscriptions because now you are sitting at home and you are entertaining yourself, and you're purchasing some meditation apps, or you have to buy gym equipment, or anything that is related to making decisions that otherwise you wouldn't have made. Those are the kind of expenses that can be included and be part of the Disaster Relief Act. Now, the only requirement are that the expenses have to be reasonable, and the recipient of the funds acknowledge that the funds are reasonable. And the assistance amounts do not have to be the same amount for all employees. And it's not subject to discrimination rules. So anybody who is an employee himself in the business, or who has employees in the business, they can qualify for these payments. So if you have employees who are suffering, you can definitely put some agreements in place and resolutions in place and make those payments to your employees. And you being the employee of your business, same thing applies to you. Anything that you can think of, Jason, that if I'm going too fast?
No, I just want to make sure, because when you start talking, meditation apps, or like for me, buying kettlebells, or because we're having to work out at home and stuff like that now. Whenever I start thinking that, then I'm start thinking, oh, this is like am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to get audited? I think that would be the first thing a business owner would think of. Like, what
Yeah,
makes this so unique?
there hasn't been a lot of communication out, because after 9/11, this has been actually coming out around this time, because we have not been in a pandemic, in a long time. So this section is fairly new, and the communication by the IRS is very limited. However, if you read the code, in that code it says other individuals can be beneficiary of this program. And individuals could be anybody. Individuals could be employees. Individuals could be the sole proprietor. Individuals could be the S corporation employee, the greater than 2% shareholder. So the instead of, if you think that, am I going to be audited, the possibility is next to nothing, because it is not being challenged, because we are in the disaster area and the government definitely wants to help. And as long as we have the proper documentation and the right implementation steps, which I discussed in our first meeting about tax planning, we should be okay, because there is a very specific way of how you're going to implement this. So please do not try to get haphazard information and try to run it through your books or do something that will get you in trouble. So utilize the help of a very qualified CPA who can help you walk through and put the documentation together. So that's how you're going to, keep everything clear. And if all the records are clear, you should not be in trouble.
Yeah. So as long as I'm keeping receipts of these things and there's an intent, like you said, my all, let's say I have 2 kids and they're all home from college. And then there's expenses that correlate with that, expenses of, and we talked about this before, and I want to reiterate it. A lot of people have moved their offices into their home, and they've bought, new computers, or they've bought, they've had to upgrade on their internet to be able to handle that, the Zoom costs, all those things. What are you seeing as tax advantages on
Absolutely.
those
So that's
items?
a great question, because you hit the nail. So a lot of people have already home offices, and it's a very common deduction that a lot of people like to take. But in that deduction, there's very specific things that we can deduct. We can deduct, our utilities. We can deduct our mortgage interest payments, real estate taxes, things like that. However, anything that is not normally deducted in the realm of a home office. For example, I need a clock, a wall clock, a fancy wall clock. I need to decorate my home office now that I'm taking Zoom calls. I have to have a nice background. Anything that's in the room that was not previously deductible can now possibly be deducted. So same thing with, high-speed internet. That's probably a basic business expense, but somebody who has to go see a doctor or has to get on a medication, and some of the things that are not covered by your insurance, those medical expenses can also be run through your business, because it's taking care of your mental well-being. And all of us being stuck in a very confined environment and no social interaction whatsoever, it definitely qualifies for a deduction through our business. So the expenses that can be justified, like you said, and the intent.
Now, what about people with children that are doing having to purchase laptops or iPads or those
So
things for school?
kids, if you are purchasing laptops because the schools are closed, or you're hiring a nanny because you cannot send your children to daycare, all of those expenses are deductible. And in fact, if your child is under care of a nanny, or you're paying your niece to take care of your child while you work, the niece does not have to declare it as income. Okay. And you can run it from your business as an expense. So it is a win-win situation on both ends.
And if you were paying someone to come clean your office in your home,
that
would
itself
be
is deductible too. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay, perfect. So it kind of gives there's these advantages that we have now that maybe people weren't thinking, before they just transitioned and moved their business into their home. Now, as far as when we like, because I want to see if we can get like real practical for a business owner, and then kind of go into like specifics. Let's say somebody was, and I encourage people to do this. They want to have they can have a consultation with you, a free consultation. You have a link on your website. What's your website again,
It's
Cynthia?
www.jindalcpa.com. It's my last name, JIN as Nancy, D as David, L as Larry, CPA.com.
And so let's say because of COVID, the last thing people think of are taxes. The last thing they're thinking of, maybe they've called their CPA or something really quick, or their tax person, but with all these receipts saved, with everything that's going on, with all these, because their businesses, a lot of people haven't realized, but their business has changed dramatically. And they've changed their business dramatically in 4 6 months. They have employees working from their house and stuff like that. Some people are getting out of leases. I heard Pinterest today, a big app, they're paying like $80 million to get out of a lease in San Francisco. So they're downsizing on the commercial side of things because they're realizing they may keep this permanent where people can stay at home. All these changes, what is the best thing? So if somebody gets a hold of you and they say, "Hey, I have no idea what's going on. I'm confused. I had this person or this person. They don't seem very helpful. I need a CPA. I need help." What are some of the things that they can start doing before they call you? Should they start getting their receipts together, their bank statements? Let's go real basic. Like if you were talking to
That's
somebody on
great.
the phone.
Great question, Jason. Absolutely not. They don't have to prepare for anything. So I like to give the first 45-minute appointment as free, because I like to call it a discovery call, because that's where we will delve deep into what their personal business situation is like. So majority of the people that come on the call and that become my clients do not know what the situation has been. And once they recognize, that also encourages them to go back and find the answers, because we've asked them these questions. But that is not going to affect the quality of our call, because it's the job of an expert to identify what you really need. A lot of times the business owners do not know because of their situation. So it's our job to identify what's been going on and how we can make things better for you. And the bottom line is we have
No, I love
to
that.
figure out a way to improve your cash flow at this time.
Right. Yeah. And because I love that, because a lot of people may be putting something off just because they think that they have to do all this homework or pull 2 years worth of this or that, and what you're saying is, let's have the phone call first. Let's get everything, um, you know, uh, let's see what you need specifically, tailor it to you. And then from there, we can go through and see how we can organize this and get
Yeah,
clarity for your tax,
absolutely. Yeah,
your
we have a very
finances.
specific and defined roadmap that we've put together. Our processes are well aligned with that. So instead of putting a lot of work into what you need to accumulate, it's best that you have a meeting with us, and then we will identify what we need from you, so that you don't waste your time accumulating unnecessary documents.
And one of the questions I wanted to ask you, I've had several friends of mine that have positioned from, their business has dramatically changed, or maybe they started a new online business or something like that. What do you have clients that, maybe are starting another business, or they're just starting out? What is that looking like when people are starting a new business during
Yeah,
COVID?
so when people are starting a new business, yes, we are getting a lot of startups come in and get some consultation on where do they start from. A couple of things that come to my mind, Jason, is first of all, if you are starting your own business and that's a new one, and you probably had a prior existing business which did not, gel very well with the one that you're going to start now, there are very specific ways how you're going to dissolve that entity. So there's legal ways and there's the IRS way. You have to make sure that both of those ways are met, because again, I'm very big on somebody coming after you and your personal assets. That is the last thing you would want. So if there is somebody who is starting out, they definitely can come in, and we're going to talk specifically things that cater to their needs, something called startup costs and organization costs. A lot of new business owners do not know how much they can deduct on their taxes regarding their investments or anything that they have loaned to the business. So there are very specific rules and that the IRS is closely looking at ever since the Tax Cut and Jobs Act have been implemented since 2018. So it is very important that we understand those rules and make decisions accordingly, because I've seen people invest $50,000, $60,000 the minimum, and later on realizing that there's only so much they can deduct in a certain year, and that investment just lies around being amortized over a course of 15, 20 years. And had they known what could change that course, they would have made a better decision. So again, meet with your CPA, or if you want to come back and make an appointment with us, we'll definitely be happy to help you with that.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people have, maybe they've gone through some of the steps, but to be able to know exactly everything. And I mean, you're sitting there every day looking at these new laws that are coming out, looking at new rules and regulations. You're having to adapt and see what's going on with COVID, and then learning from other CPAs to see what they're doing. I mean, for a business owner to sit there and feel like they can take the time and do it right, and do, to go on one of these, programs that are online, and sit there and I mean, or to rely on someone. And you had talked about this before, which I really love, is maybe somebody that is just tax oriented, but they're not, pro business, save you tax type person. Because you can be legal and pay your taxes, but to have that premise of how can we save you the most money, like you said, so that we can keep that cash in your pocket, that is a whole
Absolutely.
different
Yeah. A lot
philosophy.
of clients come to me getting upset that why did my previous accountant or CPA not tell me this? So I just have to make them understand that their business model is quite different from what we do. And it's nothing to be blamed, it's just they focus on compliance, which is very, very, very important. But they are not focusing on growing you further in your business growth, right? And how to improve the cash flow in the business. And so it's just two different business models. It just depends. I mean, we're lucky that we are tax planners, but we are also CPAs, so we can fulfill both those needs of being compliant, but also plan for your future.
Yeah, and I think having that, where you're looking at it from a different perspective than somebody that is just so narrow that they're going to say, okay, all I am is focused on taxes. I don't need to look at your books. I don't need to see, and so your taxes, you're compliant. Here you go. Write this check to the IRS and you're good to go till next year, compared to, like you said, and one of the biggest expenses that we have are taxes, if not the biggest. So why would you not take the opportunity to sit there and say, if I could save, tens of thousands of dollars, depending on your business size and the amount of employees you have and all that. But if there's an opportunity to save tens of thousands of dollars, why would you not look at that and go in that direction compared to just having this idea of being good to go to the next year and being
I just
compliant?
cannot fathom paying so much in taxes. I mean, if you are a business owner, the whole tax code is literally at your footsteps. It is at your disposal. And there is no way that you should be paying more in taxes. So I have recently worked with a client that I was able to save $71,000 in taxes every year.
Wow.
And their prior CPA that they were working with before they came to us told them, well, you're making more money, so you're going to pay more in taxes. And that is an absolute, I shouldn't say a lie. I don't want to call the person who gave that advice a liar, but that is an old myth. And that is at the time when, only rich and famous people used to utilize the tax code that the way we are utilizing today with small business owners. Things have changed so much, and people need to be educated and see if they're working with the right person who can take their business to the next level.
Yeah, and a 45-minute free consultation to sit there and say, oh, okay, let's say worst case scenario, you save them 10 grand a year, which we, in our previous podcast, we talked about, that, and you said $71,000.
Yep.
That's
that is true. So just recently, last week, Friday is when I delivered the tax plan, and if I could record their face expression, I could have showed it to you. It was phenomenal how happy they were to reduce their tax liability by that much.
Well, let's, Sandia, I want to recap. Let's recap this so that everyone knows. One, I want to recap this disaster relief program. If you could, this section 139 and the payments, if we could kind of give a quick recap on that, and then also go into how someone can get a hold of you and save these tens of thousands of dollars.
So, let's talk about the general rule about disaster relief act. Gross income shall not include any amount received by an individual as a qualified disaster relief payment. So anytime you're making these payments to yourself, make sure your income does not include that payment. So for the purpose of this section only, the term qualified disaster relief payment means any amount paid to or for the benefit of an individual. So to reimburse or pay reasonable and necessary personal, family, living, or funeral expenses incurred as a result of a qualified disaster, and to reimburse or pay reasonable and necessary expenses incurred for the repair or rehabilitation of a personal residence, or repair or replacement of its contents to the extent that the need for such repair, rehabilitation, or replacement is attributable to a qualified disaster. So what it really means is that if you have grocery expenses, I know in March we were accumulating all these canned foods and the foods that had longer shelf lives. We were stocking up on antibacterial sanitizers, soaps, and a lot of other antibacterial sprays and things like that. All of those qualify as a deduction through this section. So again, anybody who is thinking through this, this is the only time they can deduct these personal expenses from their business and bring cash flow into their business. This one strategy alone can land you several $1,000s back in taxes.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I like the whole idea of not just looking at it, like you said, looking at it and saying, okay, there's this one program, and our other two podcasts, I encourage everybody to go back and listen to them. There's multiple programs. Maybe you got the loans and you don't know what to do with the taxes after you got the loans, and I know there's a lot of people that are out there that are probably, they're small business owner, medium-sized business owner, and they're just like, I'm kind of confused. I'll wait till the end of the year, see what's going on. But it's literally could be costing them thousands and thousands of dollars by waiting or not handling it right now, when it's as simple as a 45-minute free consultation. How could someone, once again, what's the best way? Can you give me your website and then tell them the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way to get hold of us is simply going to our website, which is www.jindalcpa.com. And there is an appointment button to book a consultation with me. So make an appointment and you should be on my calendar. Number 2, you can call our office. The number is 505-552-2470. And speak with us, and we can make an appointment over the phone with you, and then meet with you at the time we have decided. Number 3 would be sending us an email, services@jindalcpa.com. Again, if you send us an email, we will send you the link to our calendar, and we will be able to meet with you at the time you would make an appointment. So the best thing is to make an appointment, because you will get immediately an appointment confirmation, but also a Zoom link to join the meeting. We would love to see you and show our faces, introduce each other, and see if we can help you in any way, shape, and form. And the appointment is totally free, and we just go from there.
Well, perfect. Thank you, Sandia. I appreciate it. I appreciate this update. We'll have to have you back on as we have these updates. I'm so excited about it. If you're part of the ABQ business family, I encourage you to get this free consultation. I will put all these in the show notes. And once again, thank you, Sandia.
Jason.
I appreciate
Thanks for having me back. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thanks to our sponsor, RigbyDigital.com. Make sure to subscribe and share. And go to abqpodcast.com. Get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner.